Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And welcome to Law School Confidential. My name is Nitza Escalera, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Dean of Students over at Fordham Law School, right around the corner. And I also teach here as an adjunct. I teach LLS 124, and this semester I'm also teaching a course on human rights. So, great connections to two great institutions. So this morning, I'm going to do my panelist channel Oprah thing, which I love doing every year, and have our great panelists here of experts have a conversation with you about law school. I'll have a few questions I'll ask them at the start. Then I'm going to turn it over to you to ask some questions because, so take notes as they talk, and I'll give you some hints about some questions to ask as I introduce them. So I'm going to start on my left with Leslie Polanco, who is a first-year student at Rutgers Law School. Leslie was born in the Dominican Republic and was raised in Washington Heights. And it says here she was inspired by her mother's efforts to succeed. Her community and family served as a catalyst to work hard in school and in the community. And she believes in giving back not only to the community, but more specifically through her church. She chose John Jay College of Criminal Justice to pursue her career in the law and joined the Pre-Law Institute to help her achieve those goals. She's currently the recipient of the Michael Maggio Immigrants' Rights Fellowship and will be interning at the Prisoners Legal Services program in Albany this summer. Next to Leslie, we have Marvin, who is also a first-year law student at Brooklyn Law School. He's a member and fellow of the Brooklyn Law Students for the Public Interest. He also works with high school students, providing legal education through mentorship, and he assists clients apply for immigration relief. During his spare time, he is learning how to play the ukulele. Question, ask him why. Next to Marvin, we have Benedicta Darteh, who's a first-year law student at Georgetown University Law Center. You can say hello to the dean for me. You'll know who I am. Benedicta was born in Ghana and moved to the U.S. In 2011 to attend college. She is focusing in, and hopes to practice in international human rights. As a first-year law student, she's a research assistant at the Women's Law Public Policy Fellowship Program. She is also a member of BALSA, the Black Law Students Association, and she's the first-year rep. Let's see what else. Benedicta graduated cum laude from John Jay, and this summer she's going to be working in Geneva, Switzerland, with the Office of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, Africa Unit. So you may want to ask her how, as a first-year student, she got to apply to be engaged in that work. So now on my right, we have John Cusick, who's a second-year student at New York University School of Law. During his first year of law school, no, I guess before you went to law school, right, you were an urban fellow at the New York City Law Department. As a current law student, he is the selection editor for the Review of Law and Social Change. Hint, ask him a question about what that journal is and what is a journal. He's chair of the Fair Defense Project's Fair Policing Committee. And this summer he's going to clerk in the Special Litigation Division of the Public Defender Service for the District of Columbia. Next to John, we have Rosemarin Belliard, who's a second-year law student at New York Law School, where she's involved in the Racial Justice Project and Safe Passage Project. Let's see, what else? Following graduation from John Jay, Rosemarin worked as a New York City Urban Fellow, where she worked in the New York City's Office of Immigrant Affairs as a special assistant to the commissioner. So let's start off with just some general questions, and we'll focus first on the first years and the second years, because there's different experiences with that, right? So what, for the panel of first years here, what was your biggest transition or adjustment when you transitioned from John Jay, right, to your first year of law school? And we can start with Leslie and work our way over to Benedicta.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, yes. Perfect. So, some of you may or may not have this experience, but moving out was a big experience for me. And it wasn't that far of a move. I just moved to New Jersey, but it's awfully quiet and quite frankly, horrible and boring. And that was a big transition. But also studying, it's a completely different experience. The way we study here as an undergrad is absolutely, positively not the way you study in law school. It isn't. Don't be scared. Law school's not going to eat you. We've made it past the first semester, midway through our second, so I'm pretty sure you guys are all amazing. You guys are here, you guys are interested, and that's all that matters. So it's the two big transitions for me. Also, if you're a minority student, that is it's a bit of a culture shock coming from John Jay. I'm one of 7 minority students in my class, and I'm the only Dominican, I think, in my year. So it's a big transition. People don't even know where Dominican Republic really is. They're like, what is that? They gotta go, hey, Haiti, the earthquake, Haiti, Dominican Republic. So it's a big transition coming from such a diverse institution like John Jay. You may or may not have to go through certain things that are maybe not pleasant.
I guess the biggest transition, backing off on the studying, is time management. Completely different in terms of what we're used to here in undergrad. It's like, yeah, I'll go get lunch. Yeah, I'll hang out. Yeah, I'll sleep. In law school, it's like, yeah, maybe a light snack and like reading. So I think that's one of the biggest changes. And I guess state of mind and thinking. Law school is for what is that, I guess, basically, what you're asking yourself. And it's basically, it's training you in how to think differently. And it's wonderful, but it's also tough. So definitely embrace it and be ready for it.
Hello. I think we are all going to echo the same thing. For me, it was the study. I remember the Sunday before class. So all the time I was here in John Jay, I never really went to the library for some reason. I got all my reading done. Like, don't get me wrong, but then I never really went to the library. I think I read on the train and stuff like that. But I remember the day before class started, I remember it was a Sunday, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to church, and I came back from church around 3, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a nap, and then I'll wake up. I go to the library. I woke up from my nap around like 8 o'clock, and then I headed to the library, and I was in the library till like 3 o'clock the following morning. Never before in my entire life had I spent half that time in the library. I was there like, oh my, and it's so funny, you don't even notice that you're spending so much time because you're so involved in what you're reading. So it's a lot, and I know that people told me it was a lot of reading, and I feel, okay, I read a lot. It's a lot of reading, and I think the struggle is training your mind to understand this is dense legal material. So for the first time you're reading things, you're like, oh my God, what is this? And then you pull it up on casebriefs.com, and you think you understand it, but then you don't understand it until you go back. So it's just a lot of reading. It's kind of hard because it's not your fault at all. You're all very smart, but your mind is not used to thinking in that particular way. And it's just like training your mind, even when you sit in class. Even it's all about your mind is just getting used to a new system, and sometimes it can take a huge toll on you, but you get used to it. As time goes on, you definitely get used to it.
So John and Rosemarin, you've gone through that first year experience. You're now second years. What's different from your first to second year?
Well, you still have to do a lot of reading. The one benefit, though, is in second year, you get to choose your classes. So it's kind of like gen ed. You have to take a 5 to 6 doctrinal classes, but as a second-year student, you can choose your classes. Another nice thing is clinic. It's really interesting to, as a second-year law student, be working directly with clients, giving legal advice and working on those things. So that was a big transition. And the last probably for me was writing. Any of you who are humanities majors or English or literature, you enjoy writing and prose. One thing is legal writing is very dry, very simplistic. So training yourself as a second-year student, you don't get a lot of time as a 1L. Oftentimes, the only experience you'll have is when you're taking your end-of-the-year exams. Maybe over the summer you'll get an opportunity to. But the second year, you really get to begin working on your writing and research skills. And I think for me, the workload always remains the same, but at least you're doing and taking classes that a lot of you are the reason why you want to go to law school, and you're really building a skill set. So, you know, you still have to balance a lot of time management skills, but you also can be more excited with the people you're around and the classes you're taking.
I agree. For me, the biggest change was what I spent my time on. So throughout your first year, you're not really encouraged to get involved as much as other upper class students. So when I got to my second year, I knew that that's something I was interested in. So I took on positions on executive boards of like affinity groups on campus, and I decided to extern, and I'm continued to extern. So balancing workload, but also responsibilities with, you know, wherever you extern, that becomes a bit challenging. But it's also, like John said, you get to participate in things that you're actually interested in. So it's actually supplementing and makes your experience more enjoyable, because you're not just confined to like theoretical case law. You're actually exercising the skills that you've been working on since your first year. So it's exciting to like go through that experience where you see your skills developing, and you're just broadening your knowledge on whatever area of law that you're interested in. So that's my biggest transition.
So Rosemarin, I'm going to start with you with this next set of questions. It'll be the same question for everyone on the panel. What courses or programs here at John Jay did you participate in that you feel helped you prepare you for law school?
I would definitely say the pre-law boot camps, exposure to just what the curriculum and what the process of applying to law school was definitely helpful. I also took I took the prep course with Nelson Test Prep, and I mean, studying for the LSAT mirrors a lot of what you're going to be doing in your classes. So I would say definitely it's of course a priority, but it's something that those are the skills that you're going to be exercising later on. So I think that definitely helped. I was a political science major, so I learned a lot about the structure of government, and I was a minor in history, and history and government structure is something that constantly comes up in classes. So I think that helped me in terms of understanding things on a different level than, you know, students or colleagues of mine that like studied psychology or music or things of that nature. So that came a little bit more natural for me.
Yeah, I'd echo any of the pre-law boot camps that you can go to, the LSAT prep programs, and I think 3 other things. There's an incredible faculty here at John Jay, people who are lawyers who have practiced for many years. Feel free to cold email them, send them an email, ask that you want to meet with them just to seek advice at what they want to do and say. It's a tremendous resource. The second, I was a writing tutor here at the Writing Center, and I think just working, you know, for 10 hours, 10 hours a week and so forth really helped me transition into law school and really understanding arguments. And the third was probably taking interdisciplinary courses. One of the big things in law school is a lot of oral advocacy. You'll see it as you've heard of these cold calls if you've watched it on TV shows or been to a class where you basically have a back and forth with the professor for 20 minutes. I think developing those skills, especially throughout your entire career, you're going to be constantly giving advice to people, whether it's in a courtroom or to clients. And I think those 3 things here at John Jay were really helpful as I transitioned into law school, along with all the pre-law boot camps and scholarship programs.
Thank you. Benedicta?
For me, I echo what they say, the boot camps, the prep course. And one other thing was that I did an internship with a judge, and the class was taught by Professor Mack, and it's funny because when I look back, I thought he was very I thought that was so difficult back then, but looking back, I'm like, oh, that's so easy, because I'm doing more of this now. And what I remember from my internship was that every time the judge gives me something to do, she would teach me, she was like, oh, take this case, read this case, and compare it to the case at hand. So that's what I did as an intern, and I think I was a sophomore in college, so for me it was so new, I didn't really understand what I was doing. But right now in legal writing, I'm like, oh, I did that back in John Jay. I understand how it works. It's not that bad. So I think John Jay has really amazing experiences. Take advantage of it. You can do really amazing internships. There are incredible fellowships. So just take advantage of all of that.
Again, likewise, echo what they say. I also took the Nelson LSAT prep and SAT rules. That was super helpful for the LSAT itself, but also in terms of what mentality you have to have in law school. I also benefited from, I think it was law and philosophy. It was, I guess, very different from what a law school class is, but it definitely developed, it started me to think in terms of what and how a law works in terms of society and why it's being implemented or why it's being challenged. I wanted to go to law school towards the end of my senior year, so really living that. But I think that was one of the main classes that definitely helped me. And then my sociology classes, mainly my upper class sociology, criminology major classes, they definitely helped me in terms of analyzing different assets. But that was, I guess, more of a sociological aspect of it. But you can somewhat mirror it to what law is in terms of legal writing, as Benedicta just said. You have to look at different laws, apply it, and see how it's functioning in terms of a scenario.
For me, I swear by the honors program. So if you can apply, please do. Those courses definitely do trigger and help you kind of think differently, and that's sort of what you do in law school. Also, Professor Mack, I know it's challenging, but he will definitely help you through. The judicial internship was definitely a great help. Professor Bowen, he teaches, I believe, is race and the law or something along those lines, but the way he teaches the course is very similar to law school, and I appreciated that. And Professor McDonald, constitutional law, I'm doing the same exact cases, so do yourself a favor.
All right, so I'll take a pause here from my asking questions and start over here. Yes.
Hi, good morning.
And ask them just before preview. Make sure you stand up, and remember there's people behind you, in front of you, to the side of you, so you have to speak up.
Hi, my name is Joanne Carpenter, and I wanted to ask, are any of you, or did any of you work throughout your first semester or your first year? Because I'm trying to work, and I'm a parent, so I'm trying to see how I'm going to juggle it all.
I'm a 1L, and then I work. Most people advise not to work, but the reason that I work is that I'm working with people that are doing what I want to do eventually. So I just thought I'm just killing two, because I want to do human rights in Africa, and I work with a fellowship that trains human rights lawyers from Africa. So I actually train people who are doing what I want to do. So that's the only reason I'm working. So, because they usually advise not to work, and they advise not to work because it's very challenging, it's very stressful. But if you're a parent, I know a couple of people who went and went to evening school. I can't speak for their experience, but I know it's probably going to be challenging. But if that's what you have to do, I'm pretty sure you have the strength to do it.
Yeah, I can't speak for the experience, but my friends are also parents and they also work. The evening is much more fitting, because being a parent and going to school 9 to 4 and then staying in the library and then going to work is not really feasible. I mean, it is if your schedule permits it, at least for work. But for sure, I have many students, at least in my that are parents and married and have a life. But I personally don't have a life, so. Thank you.
Yeah, so do look at, there's a number of schools here in the city, right, that have evening programs, and most of those students are students who work full-time and then go to school part-time, or they do part-time work in school
I have one
part-time.
more question. Are any of you on the law review or planning on getting on the law review at your
Just planning. Well, what they do in my school is at the end of the last day of the final, they hand you what's called a write-on. It's basically a package that you have to work on, and they give us 10 days, at least in my school, I'm not sure, it's universal. And pretty much, if you think you know how to write, you don't know how to do it. Yeah, I went with the perception that I was a good writer, and English minor, you get to law school, it's like, okay, legal writing, it's like you said, it's dry, straight to the point, very concise. So all of our beautiful ideas, and they don't really appreciate them in the legal field. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
John, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, so depending on other schools too, you could have other journals outside of law review. So one of the things with law reviews, it's a huge time commitment. It could be anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a week on top of other things. So at NYU, I'm on review of law and social change, and there are journals organized around whether you want to do IP law, if you want to do international human rights. So that's another thing to take into consideration too when you're looking at schools on communities that you might want to be a part of that are doing scholarship in these fields outside of law review.
I just want to add, so in addition to writing opportunities on campus, there are ways that you can develop your writing skills. So let's say you don't make law review. Being externing with a judge in your first or second year, you have the opportunity to draft opinions that are actually published. So if, law review doesn't work out, or you want to take on additional responsibilities in addition to like a journal, that's also another option. It's something that I did, and I think it's definitely, it gets the job done in terms of like getting used to Blue Book, which is the citation formats that you're going to be exposed to in law school, and just developing your ability to conduct legal analysis and research, which is what you do as a lawyer. So.
Another question from the audience, all the way in the back. Stand up, yeah.
I'm sorry, we cannot hear her.
You have to talk up.
Oh, it's a follow-up question to Joanne's question regarding the law review. So, do you think that students on the law review get an edge, in terms of having more opportunities?
I mean, it depends on what type of work you want to go into. So if you want to go into private practice and you have journals at your school, you should try to apply to any of those. And certainly with law review, it's more of a credentialization. So it does open up doors, not only with networking of people previously on law review, at least at NYU, but also if you're applying to clerkships and so forth. But if you're doing things along public interest lines, it's not so much as this something you need to do essentially to be on a journal. So it really depends on what type of work you want to get into. But certainly with private firms and so forth, at least at NYU, it certainly is, it's a door opener if you're looking to go into private practice.
I mentioned that I work for a fellowship, and I remember that I was, the other aspect of our fellowship is that we have one here for public policy. That's like after law school, you can get a fellowship. And when I was going through applications, it was actually a box for journal. So I think although he's right that it's usually for private practice, I think even in the long run, even for public interest, it just overall looks good and present. It was actually a box for like fellowship, for journal, for extracurricular activities, for clerkship. So I think in the long run, it's going to do you more good.
And while it does, please don't worry about that. Your first and second semester, like your concerns should only be getting the material and being ready for your exam. Because while law review sounds great, if you have bad grades, it's not going to work. So when you get to law school, your main focus is definitely studying, getting used to it, grades, and once you get the last final in, then you worry about that. But that shouldn't be in your mind.
Thank you, guys.
So before I turn to, yes, look, someone has it. So stand up, you have to talk. Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
This is a specific question as for Benedicta. I'm sorry. I actually want to know, because I hear you're going to Geneva. I think that's really awesome. Now, I'm just asking, like, how did the fellowship allow you the chance to with this opportunity, or how did you come about, getting this awesome thing with UNHCR? Because I'm aspiring. I work with the Model United Nations team at school. So that's why I would love to know how you reached that goal. Thank you.
Sure. So I remember the first day I got to school, actually, I was having a conversation with someone about what I wanted to do. And then he was like, oh, two of my classmates just came back from Geneva. Let me put you in contact with them. So that was the first day of school. He put me in contact with them. I had coffee with both of them. Throughout the semester, I kept in contact with them. I would randomly have lunch with them. I'll have coffee with them. So after the semester, I was like, oh, I just want to intern where you intern. And they were like, okay, let me see if there's an opening. So they saw if there was an opening, and then luckily there was one for me. God being so good, at that point my grades were not back yet, so it wasn't even an issue of grade. They're like, just forward your resume. And I just forwarded my resume, and I think at that point I was in Ghana doing an internship over the winter break. So I think it just made my resume look good overall. So this goes to speak to the fact that grades are very, very important, but especially when it comes to public interest, so are your networks. You can't get any, it's half the time you walk into an office and someone's like, let me make a phone call for you, and that's all you need. Like I got it even before I got my grades back. So then my grades came back, everyone was stressed. I went to sleep because I was, listen, I have my job already. Like I can't deal with this right now. So when you go to law school, I think this is something that most people don't really realize. Your networks are your most important, apart from your grades, which are equally important, but make use of your networks, make use of your classmates, make use of your professors. If you see a professor that is doing something that you want to do, email him, email her, go to the office and be like, hey, I have a question. How do I do A, B, and C? You see an upper freshman that is doing something that you want to do, email them, take them out to coffee, be like, question. And sometimes even if they can't offer you a job, or even if they don't know something, they know someone who may know someone who may know someone. So it's very, very important that you make use of your network, especially in like public interest. Because like with friends, it's pretty straightforward. You get a good job, it's pretty like you do well in your final, you do an interview. But when it comes to public interest, it's especially who you know. So make sure you make use of your contacts.
So I just want to take a pause there because I want to remind us, like everyone on the panel gave some recommendations about things to do or courses to take, right, while you were here at John Jay. And I just want to highlight two other points. Having gone through law school, teaching in law school and working in a law school, people have all mentioned networking, some way of networking and staying in contact with people. Writing is extremely important, right? Know good grammar, sentence structure. And you can do writing in so many different ways. So just those two important skills. Any other questions before? All right, last, and then I'll go back to my questions.
You all had said you didn't really know that law school was going to be the way it was. So if there's one thing that you could suggest that we should do before law school, you wish you would have done to prepare you better for law school, what would it be? Like people tell me read the New York Times all the time. So is there anything that you would suggest that would prepare you for law school, or what happened for this?
So we'll start with Leslie and work our way across.
I'd say enjoy before you get to law school. I mean, there's nothing you can really do about it till you're there, at least in my experience. Just also, you're going to get a lot of advice being an upcoming law student, and that for me was kind of very difficult because I was trying to follow all of this advice from all of these great, amazing people. But the truth about advice is that some things don't work for everybody. So always be true to yourself, you know, like sometimes, you know, Benedicta, she is like, she's popping. But, you know, sometimes her studies, something that she can tell me probably wouldn't work for me. So you have to be very true to yourself. It's all about trial and error, at least for the first semester. But, you know, you can't really follow everybody's advice because you'll be so tripped up trying to keep up with everybody's advice that you'll kind of fall behind. So that's really, stay true to you and enjoy yourself before law school.
Definitely. You definitely want to enjoy your time before going in. Make sure you have some lasting bonds before going in, and you know, assure them that you'll be back. But there are some courses I believe that some law schools offer prior to starting. I know Brooklyn Law School had I think a 2 or 3 week summer program that, you know, they give you a class or two, and you know, in terms of prepping you and how to just, generally study. But other than that, I guess just be ready to change your format. What I mean by that is you may learn something in undergrad a certain way by just reading it once or maybe twice or jotting down notes as you read. But just like how Leslie was just saying, you'll receive a lot of advice. You'll receive, oh, just do it this way. It's the easiest way. It may not be that for you. So just be ready to just, change or shift and find the best way that works for you.
I agree with them, with Leslie saying that enjoy, have fun. I couldn't afford to do that because I had to work, because I had to save up money. So it's all about being true to yourself. Like, you know your situation, you know where you're going. I knew I was going away to DC. I was like, I got Georgetown money, I had to save up. So I would see Leslie on Facebook traveling. I'm like, God, I couldn't do that. So it's like, just be true to yourself, and then I don't even remember the name. He's right that some law schools offer some classes, but I think there are also some other programs that offer some kind of course or some kind of preparation. I didn't take part in it. I cannot speak to how effective it is, but it seems as if those like courses or those preparations kind of give me an upper hand. But one thing that John told me when I was going to law school that I remembered and kept, and thank you, John, was that he was like, even if you meet someone who worked in the White House, you are all learning the same thing. Like, you are all learning how to think and write like a lawyer. Never forget that, because you go into law school and you meet people that will like intimidate you. Even the way they raise their hand, it's like, girl, you should. like there's this guy in my class that always comes to, like, he always comes dressed up to the T. I'm like, you're coming to class, right? So these people just intimidate you off the bat, but just remember the fact that no matter how smart you are, even if your GPA was 100.10, even if you got a 2 million on the LSAT, no matter how smart you are, we are all learning the same thing right now. So people may take these courses, and then you will sit within them, and then in the first day of class, they may sound so much smarter than you are. It's not that serious, though. So you can look into these programs. I think they help, but I don't know how much they help.
I took that program. It's called the PLUS program through discovery.org. It was nice because, you kind of take contracts and sports, and you're like, oh, I remember this. And you get paid, and it's nice. I went to Suffolk Law over the summer, and it was a very nice experience, so you may want to inquire at discover.org plus programs. I think Elizabeth sent tons and tons of emails about this. Also, please, for the love of anything, please read your emails. A lot of people don't apply to most of these things, so that's already an upgrade. So same for undergrad, read the emails, and same for law school. Read the emails, they're important. You have an advantage just by applying because a lot of people don't do it.
So the guidance of the second years.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of the same things. A lot of it's trial by error. I mean, I tell mentees that I have that were 1Ls last year, like, the cold calls don't make a difference. Like, don't worry if you mess up. And unfortunately, when I was a 1L, I didn't believe it. So a lot of this is just experiencing it. I think one of the things, if your schedule allows, is to make time for social events. I mean, even if it's like 5 to 6 hours on a Saturday, the way you work it out, I think just having time outside of the law school, and especially, hopefully it's not a super competitive class that you're in or in that way in the section you're in, but just try to get out of that even for 3 or 4 hours. Remember why you're going to law school. And it's just one of those ways to really keep you focused in law school to just, I think that was big for me as a 1L. Doing like trivia nights on Saturdays just with people not in law school was really helpful.
I agree, and I would add that, so I took part in the program that New York Law School offers like before you start your 1L year, so I found it very helpful because I got exposure to the Socratic method again and got a little bit of exposure to some of the subject matter that I was gonna get into on a deeper level in a few weeks. But it also gave me the opportunity to meet second and third year students, which was probably the most helpful thing that I ever did. Most of these students took the professors that I was taking, so I literally interrogated them about what the professor's teaching style was, what the exam would be like, and that is particularly helpful going into a class because even though you don't know what to expect, you have an idea of who this person is as a professor and what they value and what they expect from their students. So befriending second and third year students is very key in terms of just navigating how your professor's teaching style is. And definitely, once you get to your first year, you know, studying, you're going to be studying max 8 to 10 or even more hours a day. You have a lot of reading, but you should definitely make time to stay active physically. You don't want to exert yourself mentally and then not engage any other part of your life. So, you know, join a gym or do something active or social at least once a week, just to keep yourself balanced. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're 100% sane and you're taking care of yourself first, and then you would be able to succeed academically.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to, echo what John and Rosemarin just said about the importance of finding balance. And so, Marvin, no one's asked you about that ukulele, so I'm going to ask you, why do you play the ukulele?
I guess it just, take my mind off of what, that dance law stuff. And, aside from that, it's to bother my wife. So she hates it when I'm playing and singing. So it's like, yeah, whatever. But it's definitely like what Rosemarin just said. You need to let that steam out. Like I started taking the stairs now because I'm sitting down for 8 hours. I'm like, what am I doing? Sitting down for 8 hours, great, studying. So take the stairs. Definitely stimulate your mind. Do somehow. I do it to annoy my wife. So definitely find something that helps you, take the weight off.
Right, and you can begin that now, right? If a lot of our specialists here on the panel are giving you some advice, and some of these are practices that you can begin to integrate into your life now while you're here at John Jay. Right, any other, don't be bashful. Oh,
I got some sort of
speak, remember, we have people behind you, people to the side, and we're taping this to them.
because you said you were married, I'm also married. So how is it getting your family in that mindset that you're in law school and time management with your family or your spouse or significant other?
It's hard. So I actually got married during law school. Don't recommend it. I don't regret it, but I strongly don't recommend it. Yeah, it's tough only because the time commitment to the study, and then my wife. It's like, yeah, I love you, but I got this, and she's like, oh, you love that more than me and stuff. Hypothetically, of course she didn't say that, but in my mind it's like, yeah, good night, and then I'm staying up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning studying, or in school in the library studying late, coming home late, she's already asleep. It's the time management. Again, that's something that I'm still working on, because some weekends I get a lot done, I have the week exposed with her, or sometimes I get throughout the week done and then have the weekend with her, and it's finding balance. So it's you can't really prepare for that. You just have to ask your partner just to stick through you, and just send them some texts here and there or phone call to alleviate your mind, and also theirs, because they're wondering like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. It's like, oh, you're studying, but sometimes you just want to know. So keep that in mind, and also just make sure to part time for them. Like sometimes she doesn't want to hear about civil procedure, or she doesn't want to hear about constitutional law. Maybe she does, but sometimes she likes a break, so we can watch like Netflix, or we can go out, watch a movie. Right now we're trying to plan to go watch I don't even know if the new movies now, but she wants to watch one of the new movies coming out, and I'm like, okay, well, these are my hours, and it kind of sucks, but it's something that we're working on.
So balance again. So let's step back a little bit. So for everyone, you've now decided, it's hypothetical, maybe we're going back in time, that you want to go to law school. How did you go about deciding which school to go to? And what resources did you use here at John Jay to apply to law school? We'll start with Rosemarin.
So since freshman year, I basically became one of Yelka's mentees, and she kind of walked me through this entire process and was always like giving me advice on how to decide and what to do to prepare myself to be a good candidate. But in terms of picking a school, those are moments where you have to like do some self-reflection and think about what you want for yourself in terms of career, which includes area of practice and geography. Are you willing to move? Are you committed? Do you have some kind of commitment to New York City? You want to stay? So for me, I knew I wanted to practice law in New York. Before even starting law school, I was considering more of a political career, so I knew that New York City was where I wanted to start that. And although it's changed a little bit, that was one of the reasons why I ended up choosing New York City. And my New York Law School has, aside from giving me a fair scholarship, they have a good program for public interest law, which was what I was initially interested. And they have a professor named Zeleny Benson. She's like a national leader in immigration law. We have an immigration law clinic, which does a lot of great work representing unaccompanied minors in appearing before immigration court. And I thought that was something that I would be interested in doing since I already explored immigration on the policy side before law school. So just learning about what the professors taught there, what programs, what kind of clinics I'd be able to participate in. Those are things you need to consider, based on, in terms of what law school, what they have to offer and how that aligns with your professional goals.
Yeah, like Rosemarin, I was another mentee of Vielka as well, and basically I use almost every semester to try to do an internship or work during my time here at John Jay. I think that was really helpful, just figuring out what type of law I was interested in, as well as just networking when you just have to start thinking about recommendations, personal statements you want to write about. There were two big drivers for why I wanted to go to law school. I really want to do public interest around criminal justice reform. So a big thing for me was public interest communities as a driving force, specifically in a couple of cities, one being New York. And at NYU, something you guys should look into is loan repayment programs. So thinking about if there's opportunities that the school will pay back if you go into certain types of public interest work. And the second is clinics. I think a lot of times one of the criticisms of law school is that you don't get a lot of practice. Especially in your first year, you hardly get any opportunities to work with clients or to actually do field work. Clinics provide a unique opportunity to either work with, for example, you could be with ACLU or LDF or these different organizations throughout whatever city you're in, and it really gives you an opportunity to work with practitioners in the field. And those two were the big driving forces. I didn't have any interest in private practice, and for some of you, it would be a different set of considerations that you would look into. But for me, those were the two big ones and why I wanted to be here in New York and what would ever allow me to do this type of work.
So, similar to them, I had public interest ambitions, but unlike them, I knew I did not want to be in New York for a number of reasons, because I came here from Ghana, right, and then I came to John Jay. So I never really had that away experience for college, so I know that I wanted to go away for like law school so I could say because if I stay here, it means I'll just be commuting. I wanted to be away. And then two, I'm like extremely active in my church. I used to go to church like 5 days a week. I knew there was no way I could stay here and then be active in my church and then like do go to law school. So then I knew that I had to leave New York. But then one thing that I did was that I know I wanted to do international human rights. So I looked up the ratings. So one thing you should do, like whatever practice that you want to do, look up the ratings for that area. So remember I looked it up. The first one was NYU, second was Columbia, I'm like no. Third was Georgetown and Harvard. So I was like, okay. And then like most people are like, you want to do international law, like DC is the place to be and everything. So my decision was kind of like based on the fact that I knew that I didn't want to be here. And two, like do some research. Like as they would say, what do you really want to do, right? So Georgetown is known for like international law and public interest. That was perfect for me. And then like of course Georgetown gave me the most money. As you may have imagined, law school is very expensive. So one thing to think about too is like how much money is going to come onto the table and all of that. And then finally, the reason I chose it was just as John said, they have an amazing clinic that does exactly what I want to do. They have like an international women's human rights clinic. And then in the spring of 1 week, they actually go to a country in West Africa and work on human rights issues pertaining to women. And it's like, this is what I want to do in my life. So like when I looked up the school, I looked up the clinics, I looked at the professors, I knew that this was something that I really, really wanted to do. So it's just so coincidental that it happens to be a T14 law school, right? But the reason I chose it was these other reasons. So it maybe you have to, maybe you may get to a school that's higher on, but then there's a school that's maybe lower on the list that has all these things, that is your area of interest, it's what you really, really want to do, maybe they give you a better scholarship. And as they both said, it's your choice of being like, okay, do I want to go with a school that's T14 just because people be like, oh, she went to this school, or you're just going to go to a school that you know it's going to like help you. And the last thing that made me comfortable, that I remember I visited and so I had an interview, right, for the school. And then when I came back, you know how like when you interview, you're supposed to send a thank you note, right? The following morning, before I sent the notes, the dean sent me a thank you note, and he had written out Benny. Like I tell people my name is Benedicta, but I like to be called Benny. And the fact that he remembered what I like to be called was like, okay, I want to be in this environment of people that actually care. Because like law school is competitive, there's a curve, it's cut through it. But for me, I'm like, okay, like this, and for me it was like the embodiment of, this is the spirit of the school, that everyone is so friendly, everyone is so caring. For me, I'm like, this is home. I visited Harvard and I was like, I cannot do this. There was no way. So just like, take time off and visit the schools. I know like Leslie did a bunch of that. Visit the schools, talk to people in the schools. Like I spoke to a couple of people in Harvard. They were so, I was like, okay, I cannot do this. Like she was looking at me like, I'm like, okay, miss. So like just take your time, go and visit, because like it's 3 years of your life. And then as they both said, you're going to be interacting with 2 and 3L. So if everyone around you is so like, Leslie was telling me that some people in their class are so like snobbish. I'm like, I cannot. I pay too much money to sit in the class with people that are going to look at me a certain way. No, thank you. I would go to a place, because you pay so much money. So I would go to a place where I feel loved, I feel comfortable. I'll go to a place where I wake up every morning, and although it's cutthroat, although it's a cab, I feel like I'm in this together with 100 other people, and that's what I feel at Georgetown. That's what I work in.
Definitely, I recommend visiting schools. That's one of the things that I did. I mainly stayed within, I guess, East Coast. I didn't want to go to Cali or the like, but yeah, Boston, I was considering Pennsylvania, New Jersey as well, but I kind of want to stay within the cul-de-sac, so I definitely applied to a lot of New York schools. And Brooklyn Law was, I guess, closest. I guess echoing what they said also, check the programs that they have. You know, it may be a great school, but it may not have the interest that you want. With that being said, maybe you don't have an interest yet. Maybe you don't know if you want to do international law. Maybe you don't know if you want to do, in my situation, heavily considering immigration law, particularly in the public interest. And that's one of the things that I look for. I look for clinics. I look for support networks. What I mean by support networks, groups, student interest groups, student organization groups, and pro bono opportunities. That's one of the things that I consider in my, I guess, evaluation of law schools and which ones I would love to attend. And then also, when you're visiting, it's very, very recommended that you speak to a student that's not giving you the tour, or that is giving you the tour sometimes. In my case, I probed in terms of like questioning. Not trying to sound like, oh, is this law school good? Is this law school? No, just like, pick the brains of the people there and asking a question and determine what their answer means. And I felt that, some snobs are there. And it's just like, I don't need this environment. Make sure not only the environment is welcoming in terms of aesthetics, but make sure that you wouldn't mind seeing the faces of people and how they interact with other people, because it is competitive, but you're all in it together as well. So it's, you'll hear a lot of rumors of like, oh, I heard that, they rip out textbook pages, or like they stole an outline, or etc. And it's like, I guess it happens. It hasn't happened in that law, not that I can say, but it's something to consider. See how the student body works, and the administration. That's another thing that's been helping me a lot, both here at John Jay and at Brooklyn Law School. John Jay, I took advantage of the PLI. I made sure I went to as many workshops as I can, because I want to be as ready as I can be. And also the administration at Brooklyn Law School, the PSO, which is the Public Service Office. It's something that I found that I can see myself doing, which is direct services within the public service sector. And they provide a lot of advice in terms of who you should network with, where you should go, and how you should go about it. Again, it's all advice, and see how you allocate it, but those were the considerations that I definitely evaluated.
I may be a little different. I didn't really go trail of terror that, you're gonna get it. Study for your LSATs and you'll be fine. So then I got back and I thought I was going to get rejected to all 34 and I wasn't. And then I had all these acceptances, all of these scholarships, and I chose the one school that didn't give me a scholarship. But one, right. Yeah. For many reasons. One, don't be afraid of having a loan. I've never heard of someone dying because they have a loan. Like, you will make it. You will be fine. And I chose Rutgers because I love the administration. They met with them. I did meet with most of the 34 schools. So what Benedicta said, I was that one student being extra. But yeah, that's what I did. I was extra. And I just loved Rutgers. I loved that it was in Jersey. I have an umbilical cord attached to my family, so I knew I had to go somewhere. So Brooklyn was too close. It was awesome, but it was too close. So I knew that Jersey was kind of not that close, but far enough for me to have to move, and that was probably the best decision I've ever made. The students are cool. It's law school. People love to listen to themselves, and you'll learn that when you get there, and that's fine. You learn to love them anyways. I love Rutgers, so please do meet with your administration. Having administration that's supportive has been the best thing for me. I was talking about my Dean Bravo Weber. She is amazing. She will call you if she sees that you're absent. Like, those are things that to me are priceless, and don't apply to not many schools. You don't want to do that. But do visit the school and talk to students and the administration, and there's nothing like a strong support system. So.
All right, so I'm going to turn the questioning over back to you. Yes, sir. Remember, speak up, people behind you.
Good morning, my name is Jose. I have a question for,
Leslie?
Leslie, I'm sorry. How did you took out a loan, and I know law schools are expensive. How did you budget yourself?
Okay, so Rutgers, I actually chose Rutgers because of their price. They didn't give me a scholarship, but even with the other ones that gave me 75% tuition scholarships, the cost of moving out was going to be more expensive. So you have to kind of sit down and really do the math. Like, I got 75% of in Chicago, Kent. But knowing that moving to Chicago, just in the move and paying the rent and living in Chicago was going to be more expensive for me than just coming to Rutgers on no scholarship. So honestly, you sit down with yourself and you say, hey, this is what my tuition is going to cost. I moved into a small, I didn't go to the dorms because I knew that was going to be more expensive. So I live in a studio and, you cook at home and cook on Sundays. And those are the kind of things I do. I come home on Sundays and my mom is Dominican, so she has a bag for me. So, you have to really budget. It's all about budgeting. Don't be afraid of loans. I take loans for my rent. I really don't be afraid of loans.
Does anybody want to add anything else about loans or budgeting?
I mean, it depends too. So like, if you go into public interest, there's a federal program called LARP. You pay 10% of whatever your salary is back for 10 years and your debt gets forgiven. So essentially, if you do have to take out loans, but you want to go into public interest, that might not be a concern, as big of a concern too, if you're doing public interest type work. And other schools also have additional funding that they help out students through this same program as well. So that you should take that into consideration if you're thinking public sector work and taking out loans.
The only thing I would add is if you, in the position where you have to apply for loans, do not apply for private loans. Try to get federal loans just because of the interest rate is pocket friendly. Also, I would say don't be scared of loans, but also don't overdo it. I think there's some students who are stuck in the moment and realize, they just, you have this pot of money that you can use, or there's a maximum amount of money that you can take out. But I would say be frugal. Don't try to live the lifestyle of an attorney working in big law in your first year. I think it's a good skill to start practicing because you're going to be, once you're done with law school, technically, living the adult life. So it's a good time to like train yourself in being realistic and responsible with your finances, because it does go a long way.
Right, and I just want to echo, right, these recommendations. These are all skills that you can learn now. Learn how to budget now, right? The time management, things like that. Yes, sir.
I'm a graduating senior going into public administration right now, but I've always aspired to go to law school, and I have a couple of job offers, and I intend to take a year off before I go. I was wanting to ask all of you if you would recommend I do something else other than go for a full-time job in order to prepare for law school in the year that I've taken off.
So let's start on this then, because I know especially these, Rosemarin and John, you did fellowships before going to law school.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think taking a year to work before law school was like the best thing I ever did. And I think it's because you're using different skills. In school, you're reading and taking exams, but when you're in a full-time position, you have responsibilities. You have to manage projects, for example, or lead a team if you are in that position. And those are skills that I think are necessary and will supplement you when you get to your 1L summer internship or externship. So I would recommend it. I would definitely, I'd be interested. Sorry, I'd be interested in knowing like what your positions would be like. Like, is it like a fellowship? Are you going to be like a paralegal? Because that's also helpful. And if you have the opportunity to do something unrelated to law, that also might be really good, just to reinforce like your commitment to going to law school. So like for us, we were working in the mayor's for the city. And while John was more involved with law, I was more involved with policy. But regardless of my disconnect from law, the experience still kind of like made me really think, and really reminded me that pursuing a legal career is something that that I still wanted to do. So giving yourself just time to reflect and explore, and like you're young, and you're not gonna have all the answers right now, and that's fine. But exposure is key, so I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I echo everything Rosemarin said. I think almost 2/3 of my class at least have 1 year of work experience, with 1/3 go straight from college to law school. And again, too, if there's like some strategic advantage potentially on jobs that you have offer that would help you, depending on what law school, you might want to consider that. But a lot of students I know did like a year doing like, I don't even know, like, you do some teaching in some rural place or something non-law related for a year or two. And it really doesn't make a difference, because they're going to want to take you for the skill set you have in whatever field that is, and also the diverse set of experiences that you have. Because they don't want an entire class of all people who do legal work. They want different disciplines and different view sets. So if there's no real strategic advantage that you might want to consider, depending on the different jobs you have, you shouldn't use whatever field it's going to be as the guiding force. You should do whatever you're going to be passionate about that's going to allow you to build and grow, and something that you can write about potentially in a personal statement or talk to admissions folks about.
I'll just say, so there are two people in my class that, in my study group, that worked before coming to law school, and you can tell, even the way they think is different. Something about working, I think it's the fact that you sit like 9 to 5, something about it makes you think differently. So I would completely, if that's what you want to do, I would completely say go for it. Because I didn't take time off, but I worked through college, and I did internships through college. So then I also noticed that it was like time management, the fact that I had so much to do, and the fact that you're doing something else apart from, some people say that the more time you take out of like law school, like it makes you better at it. I think I'm starting to believe in the fact that actually they took a break from school and then something else made them better. So I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I actually took a year and a half off. It was great. Like, I was just sitting in edible arrangements where I used to work, and I was just like, you know what, this is not me. I'm better than this. And it was an eye-opener, basically. I was like, I don't want to work at a job that I'm not going to be sustained for the rest of my life. I want to, go in a profession that's self-sustaining. A lawyer is that. Not only is it self-sustaining, creating your own job, then you can, do more work. I had aspirations of being a social worker, but face. So I know, and I knew back then that being a lawyer would definitely help me. And I quit that job, came back here, definitely took advantage of the resources here, and started interning in different locations. That helped in terms of experience and also seeing what I did not want to do. So I learned that I don't want to, do policy work. I learned that I definitely wanted to do more direct services. I like interacting with clients. I like seeing a problem, fixing it, and then moving on, and then, come back and check on it if need be. But I recommend it as well.
I really didn't take a year off, but my classmates did, and I can definitely testify to what Benedicta says. They're much more focused. I just feel like I'm a professional student at one point, so I get comfortable with the routine of being a student. These people are about the business, so they've worked and they know that this is study time, and they're very, very, very mentally and just different. So if you think it'll be beneficial, you know yourself, give yourself time to study for the LSAT. So if you think that's gonna work for you, I say go for it.
Also, if I can just add, wherever you choose to work, it's also a good, network window. If it's related to law, policy, or what have you, they may know, as you said, they may know someone who knows another person. So it's always, you can always find an advantage in some situation. Thank you.
Yes.
Just piggybacking on his question. So my name is Zoraida. I got my bachelor's and master's here, so I just began to pay my loans. So I work. I have a full-time job. I've been an immigration officer for like 8 years, so I can't take off. So in my mind, I'm like, I encounter the unethical practice of attorneys on a daily basis. So I'm like, I have to go back. I have to go back to the legal field, which is what I initially wanted to do, but because I never had the time, because I also have a family, I couldn't go to law school when I was here. So now it's like, I want to go back and actually go to law school, but it's like, I have a family, I have a job that I can't take off, and I'm trying to find out schools that have the part-time afternoon program, and it's really not a lot, maybe like Brooklyn, I think, Brooklyn County. Just like a few. But also the commute comes into question, the loans that I'm not paying. Is it right for me? Should I go back? Am I gonna drop out after the first semester? Is it gonna be too hard? You know what I mean? So, what do you think?
Do you want me to start already here?
I think it sounds like you have law school on your mind, and it sounds like you really want to go. I would consider being an evening student, and speaking before you commit yourself to just options, because I know in New York Law School, evening students take 3 classes. So I would just explore what options you have if for some reason that doesn't work out, or you don't do as well, or you just would like a lower workload with the administration, see if that's possible. But I think that if you feel like pursuing a legal career is what you want to do, I think, have a conversation with your family about it, and just figure out a plan that'll work for you. But you should never not pursue what you want to do. Life is very short. So I would, and as a second-year student, going to law school has been the best experience of my life. And I know a lot of people who have similar stories like you, and you shouldn't let anything deter you if that's really what you want to do. But I understand the realistic concern. So definitely administration, and then considering how you're gonna work that out with your family.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Don't worry about not getting past the first semester. Everything you had at John Jay and your work will get you through that, so that should not be a concern at all. Second, in terms of the loans, I think depending on if it's private or whatever the company is you went through, a lot of them allow you to defer while you're in grad school, so that also you should reach out to. And the third, maybe reaching out to the Pre-Law Institute and seeing if there are alum of the John Jay who have families and are currently in law school, on just strategically thinking out that way and speaking to those folks. Because, I have friends and classmates who do it as well, who have families, and those things shouldn't be a consideration if you can work it out. And it seems like it's something that's been on your mind for a while too. So I would start thinking about it strategically now and reaching out to folks who are currently doing it. And John Jay's prepared you well enough to pass and do really well in law school. So don't let that be a concern either.
Yeah, I'll just echo what they said. I think you should definitely go for it. But speaking to your concern of whether you do well or not, I have come to notice that, I'm not trying to call you old, I'm sorry, but more mature students or students who, non-traditional students, to be politically correct, actually do better for some reason. I think it just goes back to the maturity, the fact that you have a family, it means you're great with time management, you go to school, you work. So don't worry about not doing good at all. On the contrary, I think you're going to do way better than some of us because you have a little on your plate already and you already know, it's already like intuitive how to balance a lot. So I think you definitely do amazing. I think you should go for it.
Likewise, but also consider your end, because the law school will definitely provide programs for your afternoon, but in terms of your job, in terms of your children, your family, consider how that will be handled. See if it's feasible. See if it works with the schedule that the law school will provide you with, and also again ask at your job. I've been to a few panels before deciding on what law school, and there were both full-time and part-time students, afternoon students, and they gave pretty good testimony in terms of how their job was pretty accommodating to allowing them to go to law school and being understanding in terms of maybe a day that they won't be able to come in or their times. They give less workload or the like, but definitely consider also that I also met a few students who switched after. They just did not like having a job and a part-time schedule. They personal reasons. Consider maybe even shifting if you can defer the loans, or if you can do something in terms of that area. If you can switch programs, then that's also a benefit of you. But just weigh all options and see if it's feasible. That's what I recommend.
I would definitely echo and I agree with all of my colleagues, but I feel like you come from a position of passion, and I feel the burn inside of you, so don't let it go to waste. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I believe in you. So email me if you want, I'll be rooting for you and your offering, something like that.
Let's see if there's any. Okay, Ben, and then you.
So my question is for John and Rosemarin. My question is for John and Rosemarin. I want to know more about being a second-year law student. Like, do you pick your major and they say, hey, these are the classes that you can take within your major? Is it like undergraduate college? Is it similar?
So there's not really a major. You can specialize in a specific area, and you can do that by associating with centers. Like, for example, New York Law School has centers for real estate, for corporate law. I'm part of the public interest law center. So as an affiliate of that center, there are courses that I have to take in order to graduate with my affiliation with them. And most of them are related to immigration law. We have immigration law classes and clinics, but there's also classes that supplement that. So like criminal procedure, criminal law intersects a lot with immigration, so it's important to have that background, and like anti-discrimination law and policy. So there's electives that you can take to supplement, but if you know exactly the area of interest that you want to do, there's that option. What was the second part of your question?
That was basically
Oh, that was it.
the courses. What courses to take in the
Okay.
second year.
There's also simulation courses, which I'm such an advocate for. I started taking them in my second year, that are very helpful. Like if you know you want to do litigation, you should definitely take like a trial advocacy course or some kind of negotiation classes. Those classes actually are like the practical skills. Like you're doing simulations during class. You're not, reading case law about, some theoretical corporate issue that happened somewhere in Delaware. So those are the kind of classes that are going to actually help you in your second and third year externship, which is the goal. You want to graduate being, ready to hit the ground running as an attorney. So those are the skills that you need. So I would recommend taking a class like that.
Yeah, I mean, echo all the same things. There's like 6, I think, core classes that you need to take to graduate, at least at NYU. And then aside from that, you have a lot of flexibility. They'll give suggestions on paths. So say, for example, you wanted to work for like the SEC. It helps with like white collar defense and complex investigative seminars. But the interesting thing is you can also, depending on the school, take seminars. So I had a midterm paper that I had to write a couple of weeks ago for the seminar I'm in. I didn't think I'd be doing that again. And clinics are also really nice. So this semester I'm working with the Legal Defense Fund on a voting rights case down in Louisiana. And that's a majority of my course load. It's almost 7 credits. I'm taking 2 other classes. So it's really nice just getting that experience as well, that, in these other ways where you don't need to take traditional classes, you can supplement it through clinics or through seminars as well. And you have, complete discretion in most parts to do that, except out of like 6 classes, and most of them you'll take your first year.
Thank you.
My question was basically, how do you guys get over the intimidation I guess a lot of people feel before starting law school and during law school, whether it's the other students that come from maybe more like privileged, higher backgrounds, that they kind of know what they're doing or have family within that are already lawyers, or is it just the academics as well? So what helped kind of get you over?
We'll start over there.
I actually learned this from Rosemarin. So do use your network. Use the student network. I was definitely intimidated. These people raise their hands and they sound better than the professor. And you're like, what are they even talking about? The people that raise their hands 9 times out of 10 don't even get better grades. So you have to keep that. Lawyers love to listen to themselves. They just do it. That's just part of life, and that's okay. Yeah. But one thing I learned from Rosemarin is always be over prepared. She told me this not too long ago, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. So always be over prepared, because when you hear these people rambling, you're like, that's not even right. But they sound so smart saying it that you get intimidated. So be over prepared. No, be prepared for class. If you're prepared for class and you're prepared, you'll be fine. You'll get over it. You'll get a laugh out of it. So it's pretty cool. And don't be intimidated. We're all running the same race. And one thing I've learned in the legal field is that it's extremely small. So you have to be nice to everyone, because no matter how many grades you can get, if people don't like you, you're not going to get hired. So even be nice. I interviewed for a judge, and she was like, would you be nice to the janitor? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't even think of that, but there's people that just take the degree all the way up here and forget their humanity. Don't do that. So remember, be true to yourself and be prepared. Laugh.
So we'll just keep them short.
I mean, for me, I guess the biggest amount of time was, applying. That was the most, I guess, scary for me. That makes sense. It was just getting over that fear and being confident in yourself. And, echo what she says, you're in law school. You're of course going to be persuasive when you speak or when you give your opinion. Just agree. If you agree, if you disagree, then, you should possibly raise your hand and rebuttal or what have you. But definitely be confident in yourself. Definitely have a network and a support system with family, friends, or law students. I found both my wife and, for student organizations like LALSA, part of LALSA, and LISPI, which is the Brooklyn Law Students for Public Interest, and they hear you out. There are 2Ls, 3Ls, and other 1Ls that you can talk to and say, I'm going through this, and they're like, yeah, I went through that, or I'm kind of going through it too. What are you doing? Or, just whatever little help, the anxiety of whatever you're afraid of, whether your grades, whether your mentality, and just how you're balancing things. Just,
There are people in my class that raise their hand every single time and then they got the worst grades. So don't let it intimidate you at all. Piece of advice, what you should do, what I do is that if I have a question, I go to the professor's office hours, because that way they get to know you by name, right? So then you never know, as I said, it's a very small law. I may need a little bit of recommendation from a thing like you put down. People like, oh, Benedicta, I remember her, she used to come to my office. So don't pay them no mind. If you have a question, feel free to ask in class, but what you should be focused about is using the office hours. And two, make use of definitely groups. I'm a member of BALSA, I'm an executive, it's happening on all levels. The day before class, they give us a boot camp on listen, this is what you should know about law school. A, B, C, D, and E. So I'm pretty sure that in whatever law school you go, there are going to be other schools like LAWSA, BALSA, LGBTQ, any women's law affiliation. Use that. Those groups have their own resources, they have their own network, and it kind of helps because I went to class the first day knowing how to brief a case, and most people didn't because BALSA got it. So and I'm pretty sure that so many other little groups for the people too. So make use of these groups, and then don't forget, pay them no mind. People that raise their hands, it's not that serious.
So brief comments?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Again, the thing to remember is that nobody in your class is in any strategic advantage. You all, no matter what they've done, you're all going to be learning the same thing, relearning and learning to write. Certainly you're going to get exposed, especially having gone to a CUNY school, to different levels of privilege in terms of wealth, identity, and those things. And that's challenging to deal with, especially in certain classes when you're taking criminal law and you're seeing certain things that historically have been done and reading about those and not in a critical lens. That's another thing that's alienating. So use affinity groups. There are pushes on certain campuses to create these accommodation spaces, especially it's a big push at NYU, and really rely on the social support groups at these schools. But again, it's something that you should definitely prepare for and think through, but the resources and the other students that are there will help you get through it.
I agree with everyone, and the only thing that wasn't mentioned that I would add, as a woman and as a woman of color in the legal profession, you're going to always be a minority, and you're always going to, there's always going to be a situation where you're going to feel as though you're being looked at differently, or maybe what you're saying is valued differently. So practicing being confident and being over-prepared is obviously a combination of goes with that. But believing in yourself and showing that, never really, if you don't feel like you're 100% in what you're saying, go back and, do your research, but never really show that, especially in the classroom or in the professional setting. Just getting used to not portraying that and just exerting yourself as a confident woman who's very sure of her academic and professional capabilities.
So we've come to our closing time, and I just made some little notes for myself of things that are panel of experts and were telling us. One, we got a plan. Right, so it's important to think and plan out how you're going to be going to, for your process to get to law school, your financial aid, how am I going to balance my family, right, and make some time to have fun. You have to advocate for yourself. Visit the professor's office, right, practice that here at John Jay. You begin your training here. Right, we did talk a little bit about study groups. Someone did mention study groups. You can start practicing that here at John Jay. Work with each other, support each other, and make time, right, to talk and use the resources that our panelists have. I want to ask that we all give them a great round of applause.